Hey guys, welcome to another Complete Developer Raw, a live show with Will and BJ. And there we are. What's up, y'all? Uh, so we spent the last, I don't know, 15, 20 minutes working on getting the audio set up. I got some new headphones. Well, actually, they're old. They're probably older than myself and Will. I got them at an estate sale, but so we're getting that set up, and then we're working with Will's audio to get him to the right level, so I don't have to mess as much with it on post, which is quite nice because that's going to make life a lot easier on, well, not me anymore.
Yeah, on somebody else.
Right, right. So y'all, for those of y'all here in the U.S., I'm not sure what you did for the Fourth. Outside the U.S., Fourth of July is a big American holiday. Y'all probably already knew that, but just letting you know. Um, I went to a barbecue over at some friend's house and got to do something really cool. It's called light painting, where we took slow shutter photography, and you have to stand like perfectly still, and then you move a light source around, and it paints it on the image. So we had sparklers that we used for that, and here's a couple of the photos from that. If you follow me on social media, I kind of posted them, but this was a lot of fun. Um, that top left one, I was trying to make a smiley face. Looked more like the Joker's version of a smiley face. Did not turn out well at all. But it was a lot of fun. We had a great time. Um, Other than that, I have just been preparing for Codeland. I met, I guess, the third time with Saran um, on second or third time. I don't remember, but the last official meeting with her was Saturday, and so we went through my talk. She gave me 2 pages worth of notes. I was just looking down at it. Great stuff. Y'all, normally when I do a talk, it's just me. Sometimes Will listens to it and gives me some feedback, but this is just phenomenal having someone that doesn't know me as well as Will does to listen to what I have to say and be like, so here's what it came across as, and like, could you go into more detail in this area or that? It's phenomenal. Like, I've not had an experience like this speaking since, well, taking Dr. Prill's comm class
Yeah.
back in college. So it's really awesome. This talk is going to be phenomenal, and I'm actually giving it in Nashville as well, making it a little bit longer for that. But yeah, so that's cool. What's going on with you, man?
Well, I am back into living in .NET Core, um,
Woot
and
woot.
instead of like living in SQL Server,
Well, yeah, I
which
guess
is
I.
yeah, it's really nice. Like I can like do programming things instead of like fight with the platform all the time.
Uh huh.
Um, yeah, it's really helpful. I'm just a lot happier with that. I'm also starting to work on a Stripe integration for a side project, and I'm really impressed with um, how their API works compared to some of the other payment processors that I've worked with, because a lot of them kind of suck. Well, not
Mm-hmm.
kind of; they're really awful,
Yeah.
just in general. And man, Stripe, it's like all documented. They give you a nice class library. They've got examples when you go in and if you're signed in and you have a key, the sample code has your key in it.
Mm-hmm.
So when you want to stand something up, like it's right there, you just copy and paste and test it out. I mean, it's just really like they thought of it. They thought about how this thing was going to be used instead of building the API just kind of as an afterthought, and it really shows. So I was
Nice.
really impressed with that. Additionally, I have more writing coming. My book, I got my advance on it 2 weeks ago, I think. Is that right? And so, given that I'm kind of in the downbeat between that being done and having to start doing the heavy marketing for that book, I pitched another one.
All right.
So yeah, we'll see what happens. Hopefully that'll go well. Even if it doesn't, I'll just publish myself.
Well, you did that the first time and it worked out pretty well for you, so why
Yeah, I
not?
did. Well, it worked out to be a lot of pages though. I don't want this one to be that big.
Yeah, yeah.
Because boy, that's rough. The final thing is I've had several people approach me about coaching for software developers, and I'm really, really leaning towards actually doing that.
Hmm.
And so there'll probably be some stuff here in the next few weeks that will come out. I guess towards that end. So I've really been thinking about it a lot, and that is kind of a direction I want to go in at least some of my income. So just
Cool.
be looking for that.
That's really awesome, man. So, not a whole lot on the podcast front. You know, last week was a holiday. We're just sort of plugging along right now. Um, and so, though not podcast related, but network related, Will is writing the challenge for us this month for Developer Launchpad. We got
Yeah.
it's this is cool because this is Will's first time writing a challenge, and um, the Free Code Camp is joining us because their meeting is normally the first weekend, and because of the holiday, they asked if they could come. We use the same space. They asked if they could come to ours, and we're like, yeah, that's awesome. We'd love to have you guys. So
Yeah, and I just came up with the challenge idea because it was actually something that I was kind of having to deal with. So
mhm.
I just figured I would just kill two birds with one stone with that one. So
Yeah,
I think it worked out all right.
I think so too. I think so too. That's cool. So
So
our
it's
top.
time.
Oh,
Oh,
you go for it, man.
I wrote it. So our weekly topic is why agile development requires refactoring. Now, this is something a lot of people don't seem to get, especially in the managerial space. They think that, oh, we can go agile and we can't refactor, and somehow that's going to work. Um, I've seen this a lot over my career, and it really boggles the mind. So, like as a developer, you're going to run into this eventually.
Yeah. Um, the the nice thing about agile is that there's a general assumption that you don't know everything about a problem space when you start working on
Yeah. So, really, like non agile is essentially narcissism. Like,
it.
I mean, it is. It's like I know everything and I'm the best, and agile is a bit more humble. Waterfall style development tends to assume that you can and should design an entire system end to end before you start working on
Hmm.
it. And
No, go
oh,
ahead.
yeah, both of these things have their places, right? Agile is really good at adapting to changing landscapes. So things like customer facing websites, basically any software you develop
Mhm.
that's going to be iterated on over time, which is just about everything.
Whereas
Agile works real
waterfall,
well.
yeah, whereas waterfall is really good at delivering results in environments with stringent requirements, especially when reworking an approach that's really expensive, like say aeronautics.
Yeah, of course, if you're Boeing, what you do is you rework it and you don't tell anybody, and then you just face plant into the ground. But yeah, that's from the news.
Yeah, yeah, I know.
So refactoring is the process of restructuring code without changing its external behavior. Now that's really important. It's intended to make the code easier to work with based on the current needs of the system and the people developing on that system.
A lot of companies state that they embrace the agile methodology, but are very resistant to refactoring. What this results in is substantial overhead when trying to make changes to the system, as those changes may be poorly supported by the existing platform.
Yeah, and this also means that bad decisions that are made without all the relevant data tend to become permanent decisions as the system evolves. So, like, if you build on top of crap, what you built is also going to be crap, but it's going to be crap that supports the things under it, essentially, because you can't remove the previous layers without removing the stuff you added.
Mm. this approach also tends to make the system more difficult to reason about as it gets older. So you add complexity to the system just to add these little features.
Yep. And there's a few reasons why this happens. The first is that management does not really understand Agile. They read about how it improves productivity at a high level, but they don't consider the mechanisms that lead to that improvement.
Yeah, a lot of times I've seen where they hear about agile and they want to bring someone on that knows it, uh, or they send their people out for training, but then they don't do training on it, and they don't believe their people when they say, "Well, this is how it's done. This is what we need to do to make this work."
Yeah, I really feel like the upper management Agile training is a terribly underserved market,
Could yeah.
just in terms of what I've seen. Like it has to
Mhm.
be. Either that or these people don't listen at all.
Part of it maybe they don't listen, or they may just not. I wonder how many of them actually go to trainings.
Yeah.
You
I just
know,
wonder if that's a market that would be worth pursuing for somebody, not us, probably.
no.
That
Given
sounds awful, but there's going to be like this one masochist out there. It's like, yeah, I'm going to do that. Yeah, you go right ahead.
well, I know some people that are agile
Masochists?
trainers. Well, that too, but
Oh,
agile
yeah.
trainers, and yeah, they and the to become that, it's pretty intense. Like I was thinking, hey, like, because especially when I was really into it, when I got my CSM and my CSD, I was like, I really want to go through this the certification process so that I can do these trainings, because you know how I love people, and I'm like just very loquacious, gregarious, all that,
All the
and
big words. No, I
all the
didn't get
big
that
all the
impression.
yeah, I like big words, and I
And
cannot lie. Wait, no. Uh,
had to go
so
there.
yeah, I did, of course. Uh, but no, like I know, like I've talked to him. I know people that have done that, and it is like the one guy was telling me about it, and he's like, yeah, it was probably about 5 to 10 years before he was able to start teaching classes.
Yeah.
It's pretty intense, and it's expensive too. So yeah, if someone wants to do that, that's a lot.
Yeah.
Um, Now, the other
And
thing that management doesn't understand is refactoring.
yeah, generally this means they've never written code or they did so a really long time ago where it wasn't really a thing, right? Where you
Mm-hmm.
built the system and you put it out there and you really tried not to ever touch it. And we're not in that world anymore.
Yeah.
And that tends to mean that they don't grasp the cognitive overhead that comes with working with systems that surprise developers, right? Like the worst thing in the world to do to most developers is to surprise them
Yeah.
as far as how your system works, because people make assumptions, and if those assumptions are incorrect, that leads to rework. So the idea of refactoring is fix it where there are not surprises, whether it's for testing purposes, whether it's for configurability, whether it's for just general use.
Mm-hmm.
Like, don't surprise other people.
The other thing is management tends to be focused more on new features than on maintainability.
Right.
That's because new features bring in new money.
Yeah. Well, and it's also kind of a prestige thing. It's like
Mm-hmm.
increasing headcount. It
Yeah.
gets it gets attention. Whereas you go, hey, I cleaned up this system where we can actually maintain it. Like there's no headlines written about that. Of course, the thing is like the feature creep on apps. If you've ever used Evernote, like back in the day, it was really nice, and now it kind of sucks because they added a bunch of stuff that small percentages of their user base use, and it made the app really slow, made it crash a lot. I mean, they really screwed up. Feature creep is it's kind of like cancer. It's one of those things where growth is the only ideology,
Mm-hmm.
and it's really dangerous. And management is incentivized to focus on that instead of on, hey, can this organization actually survive 15 years after I leave?
Mm-hmm. Now it's interesting because the some of the software we use for recording, I recently updated, and one thing I really like is you can pick which features you want based on what you're doing. So, since we don't do a lot of certain types of audio production, you know, most of those features I don't pull in. Now, as
That's
I'm
good. I
getting
mean,
into,
although it's probably useful next time you make your rap album
well, I
because we
mean,
know you're working on that.
my developer rap album
Yeah.
with my guitar in the background.
Oh man, that just sounds terrible. Like it's something we should do as a parody. Uh,
So, what do you do when this happens?
yeah, you got two options. You try to educate management, or you leave.
Yeah.
This is a managerial top-down problem, and if they don't get it, then you have a decision to make. You either go, okay, I'm stepping away from agile and I'm going to do waterfall and live with the consequences, or I'm going to go somewhere that actually has their head on straight. And
Yep.
that's really what it comes down to because you don't have power over management. If you can't get them to understand, you can't make them understand.
Mm-hmm.
And that actually kind of ties into another thing I see a lot of is a lot of managerial types are really, really focused on blame. And if you're
Mm-hmm.
in one of those kind of organizations, you're not going to be able to educate them because all the other developers are going to be scared to make changes that need to happen because management's going to come down on them. And so management will not understand you as the lone voice of reason in that situation. And at that
Yep.
point, you just need to go.
Mm-hmm. All right, y'all. Now you've heard Will's opinion on that. Let's hear his opinion on a question.
We could switch the order of the questions if you want. If I mean, I kind of took that one over. Sorry.
No, no, that's cool, man. You go for it.
All right. So here's the first question. A friend of mine says that developers who work too much are bad for team morale. Why would they say this? Aren't these people the backbone of a good team? Okay. So here's why this is bad. A lot of times, the developers that work too much don't really have anything else going on in their lives, right? They don't work to live; they live to work, and as a result, they put in a ton of hours. Usually, it's because they've got other stuff, that kind of bugs them about the rest of their life, and they decide that working 70 to 80 hours a week is kind of reasonable.
It's escapism.
Yeah, it really is, and that's fine, whatever. But the problem is the rest of the team gets judged by that. And so, like, if you're working 40 to 50 hours a week, you're working a reasonable number of hours. It doesn't matter how hard you work because management, first of all, most managers can't really measure developer productivity worth a crap anyway. They just see butt and seat.
Mm-hmm.
And so you'll never measure up to that without sacrificing everything else in your life and becoming as dysfunctional as the person that's working 80 hours a week.
Well, the other problem too is you get to a point of diminishing returns
Yeah.
where you're actually being less effective and you're creating more bugs and more problems for yourself, which are going to cause like there's a point where, and I think there's a name for it, but I can't think of it off the top of my head. But there's a point where in this process, like you're increasing your hours, you're increasing your hours. I'm trying to do this. It's backwards, man. It's
You look like you're
backwards.
trying to use the force, man.
I know. So like you're here, you're increasing, you're increasing. I'm just gonna go up and down because I know that's the right way.
Mind tricks do not work on me, only money.
See, I can do that.
Yeah, yeah.
So, but no, but where you're going up and you're going up in your hours and your productivity here. So hours, productivity, they're going up, they're going
There's
up.
an inflection point.
But then you get to the point where your productivity stops going up and your hours keep going up. Then you hit a
Yeah.
point where as your hours keep going up, your productivity goes down because you're causing so many errors that you're having to spend so much time fixing.
Yeah, and that's another thing that happens. And the other thing too is a lot of times what the overworkers do is they do get to the point where yes, their productivity's up, fine, they get more done. But what they also enable management to do is waste the time of all the other people there.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, if you've got somebody that, hey, they can work 45 hours a week, but they can't work 65, and you got some guy that can work 65, well, if management decides, hey, I'm going to waste 20 hours a week of everybody's time and expect people to just work over in their spare time, now the person that can only work 45 hours a week is at a significant disadvantage.
Yeah. That makes perfect sense.
Yeah, it just really creates a lot of problems. Like it's almost never worth it to work over. And the other thing is the developers that work too much get sick a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Like they really end up averaging a lot of times a normal work week. It's just that they're arbitrarily sick for 2 or 3 days.
Yeah. Yeah.
And a lot of times they're home drunk, and that happens too. Just from past experience, I've seen that a lot. So.
All right, going on to our next question on that. Management constantly insists on demos of work in progress in the middle of a sprint. This seems to be disruptive for the team. How do I convince them to quit doing this? Well, the passive aggressive way to do that is to every day, randomly throughout the day, walk into their office and ask them what they're doing. And ask them to show you the email they're writing so you can proofread it for them.
Yeah, or like write a bot that sends them like the Wikipedia link to the Heisenberg uncertainty principle.
Yeah.
Right, because like if you're constantly measuring something, you're stopping it from moving.
Right. So, there's that, but I don't suggest doing that unless you're Will. Yeah. He could probably get away with it. That's about it. I don't know, maybe other people, but Will's the only person I know that can get away with it.
When you pretend like you don't know any better. Just walk in with a clipboard.
So, realistically, when I saw this question, Will picked the questions this week, and this is a really good one.
Will pulled the questions from somewhere.
Well, that's what I do too, so I can't say much. Every now and then we do get listener questions that we use on here, but we're not.
Yeah, yours were from the web or from listeners.
Yeah, mine are from listeners mostly. I just assume everybody on Quora listens to our podcast, so they're from listeners.
I like that. That's confident. Sounds good, man. All right. Yeah.
So anyways, realistically, if you're doing Scrum, you should be presenting at the end of the sprint. Now, not everybody's doing Scrum. Not everybody's doing true Scrum either. But set up a time for this. So if you have a set time that is, hey, we finished this, we're going to present it to you, show you the progress that we made, that will usually, for most managers, that will like calm this down. Now, if you just have that one that's just like overbearing with that, that's when you have to be like, all right, look, like start counting that into your sprint and like cut back the amount of work hours you have. When it gets brought up, say, yeah, we have to plan for showing you what we're doing. That means stopping what we're doing, setting up a demo, explaining it to you, and then spending time getting back into what we were doing when it got interrupted. By the way,
testing that demo too, because those kind of managers are also the ones that inflict consequences on you for not having stuff working perfectly.
Even while you're still building it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I would definitely do that. This kind of ties into the first question, right? Like if you have somebody that overworks, that person may well be able to deliver something that works well, consistently with that kind of timing, whereas everybody else can't because the manager's going home or they're playing golf or whatever. So that person has working hours that are not tainted by this person.
Mm-hmm.
So,
yeah. All right, guys. Thanks for listening there. If you guys have questions, you can leave them in the comments or email us at neckbeards@completedeveloperpodcast.com. If you got a short question, I'll write it up. If you got a long question, Will write it up. So no matter how you ask it, it's going to get in here. I got to pick on you, man. I got to have something. So y'all, the episode coming out next week is technical debt analysis. That's another one Will wrote. Will wrote a lot of stuff that's happening this week. Awesome. Whether you are consulting, working as an employee, or even building a product, you've probably heard about technical debt. Most developers use the term to describe a variety of phenomena in a way that isn't particularly helpful for really understanding what's going on in an organization. Also, because previous developers may have used the term in an unhelpful way, management may not take the issue seriously enough. In addition, if you're in a management position, you may find it difficult to really understand the type of tech debt in your organization. Now, regardless of who you are, technical debt represents an issue that you need to understand in order to be effective. In the episode, we discuss some ways to understand the problem that may help you and your team have better discussions about it. So that's going to come out next Thursday. Check that out. It was a really good episode. I think we knocked that one out of the ballpark. I think that was a good one. So, guys, we're going to hop off here and record another really awesome episode. Guess who did not write this episode? Will. It was my turn to write the episode. So finally, something I wrote. Woot woot. Sorry, man.
Got to brag on what you got.
Right, it's gonna be one of them nights. I can already tell. All right, y'all. We'll talk to you later.